Hello everybody and welcome back to artofdino.com and saveearth.us for Tartarian Tales number 93. In this one I found a cool article from 1916 about Tartar fashion, so it's a totally different avenue. And I also wanted to start with this, where it's an article that says he has caught a Tartar, which is a saying that if you type Tartar into the newspapers, you will see this saying pop up all the time. So I wanted to just show you all because it's like a nice little antidote, and it kind of means a little bit, I think, and I think this fashion as well. These Tartars were definitely revered by the people of the past, and so from 1864, this kind of quote is kind of has risen in the public colloquialisms. So it says, he has caught a Tartar. In some battle between the Russians and Tartars, who are a wild sort of people in the north of Asia, a drive-it private soldier called out, "Captain, halloo there, I've caught a Tartar." "Fetch him along then," said the captain. "Aye, but he won't let me," said the man. The fact was, the Tartar had caught him. So when a man thinks to take another in and gets bit himself, they say he's caught a Tartar. So I find that interesting and also very telling, because it basically shows that the Tartars were outwitting them all the time. And, it's probably almost impossible at one point to catch some of these native Tartars, because they must have been just amazingly known throughout the land. They must have known the land really well. They must have, not been very easy to catch. They must have been a tough, fierce competitor and person to battle against. And that was notorious throughout all of history. And so these guys nowadays, they're like, oh, I caught a Tartar, but in actuality, they were the ones who were caught. So it's kind of interesting. And you find this all over the place. So I just wanted to put that out there to begin with. And then I wanted to go into this article right now, which I found about Tartar fashion. So I'm going to just read this article and chime in from time to time. So this is by Lady Duff Gordon. Totally different than the usual Tartarian Tales, but still necessary to get the full picture of who these people were and how they were talked about later on, after they were eviscerated, kind of, when the memory was slowly fading, but they were still revered and respected. And you can tell there was a lot that was known about them a long time ago, and they just have these little things, these little skills that are just amazing. And fashion is definitely one of them, and I'll show you some modern stuff as well. So here we go. By Lady Duff Gordon. The wearing of a Tartar costume should not make the wearer subject to remarks about a bad temper. The Tartar was indeed a ferocious warrior, but he had another function. He wore striking costumes, bold in design, magnificent in color. His hat, too, was peculiar to the Tartar. I show you on this page an adaptation of the fierce Tartar costume to the needs and taste of the fashionable woman. The hat is the dominating note. It is not only chic, but has a utilitarian value. The close-brimmed hat, while not particularly becoming to any save a very young and lovely face, is the most useful of head coverings. It does not invite the havoc of the wind, and it does combine in friendly fashion with a veil. The Tartar hat presents another advantage. It has a low crown that has certain aesthetic values. Generally speaking, the low crown is more symmetrical. Regarding the wearer in her attire as a whole, the low circle of the Tartar hat blends with the curves of the body, whereas the high, stiff-crowned hat gives the impression of something that is an interloper that does not belong. The Tartar shape deserves to enjoy popular favor for more than one fleeting season. It is smart because it is trim. Its trimness commends it for the demi-toilette. Its usefulness should guarantee it long life as an accessory of a walking suit. It is a natural crown for an Oriental costume, and it seems that the touch of Orientalism in dressing is, like the poor, always with us. The embroidered robe, well, actually, I find that amazing, too, about the hats, because I love hats. There's something about it. I don't care what happens to my hair, because I've always loved hats my whole life. And we see all those pictures of the olden days, the black and white pictures of the newly fresh cities, and everyone's wearing a hat. So there's some kind of culture here regarding the hat and the past. And again, like she says, different advantages beyond just aesthetic. There's something even more that that comes with the magic of the hat, and especially if you imbue it with metals and precious metals and amazing symmetrical patterns and things. There's no telling what it does. The embroidered robe worn with this hat is a type of the rich stuffs which are worn when possible by those who love beautiful fabrics. That, of course, includes all women. The ornate gauzes and embroidered silks have their inspiration in the Orient, though made by Western looms. The fount of their beauty is the East. The stamp of the Orient is upon the veil-like gowns so greatly in vogue. The long floating yet swathing veil is part of the East, part of the mystery of the East. It conjures visions of Salome, of the subtle, seductive graces of the harem. This will be characterized by fashion historians as the reign of the scarf. Never were scarves so much worn, never so indispensable to the elegance of a grande toilette. Yet, if you observe the kaleidoscopic procession of women at a fête, you can but see that many of them are not to the manner of the scarf born. Some are too unconscious of them, allowing them to drag beneath their own feet in the feet of others. Some are too conscious of them, applying their energies assiduously to keeping them in place. Many give the impression of not being accustomed to their scarfed state, whereas the triumph of good dressing is to seem absolutely unconscious of your habiliments. A little practice at home in the manipulation of the scarf, which as it grows larger grows more difficult, should banish this gouacherie. Just the language of I love the old language. It's just so much better. Everything was so much better before cell phones dumbed everyone's communication down everywhere. I can't state that enough. It's sad because the old people talk so beautifully, even in this 1916. So properly managed, the scarf should enhance the beauties of a costume as measurably as a veil does the face. In colors, the Orient continues to give its infallible lessons. 10,000 years ago, China and India had mastered the last word in the blending of colors. And that is another important thing. These guys were developing these textiles and these amazing color patterns, and everything was art. If their clothing was this immaculate and this beautiful and this perfect and this detailed, imagine what their physical art was that could easily be burnt in war and destroyed. Imagine what their precious metal jewelry was like, the Khans. Imagine what they were like. And I'm going to go into this because there's a term called Tartarium, which I was connected with this article, and I'm going to talk about that right after this, where it talks about even Dante talks about the Khan's robe and the magic of it. So here we go. The East knows that colors, however different, blend if the correct intermediary colors take their place between them. For instance, the color minglers of the Orient would not impose a brilliant red upon a dark brown, but if they wished to bring these colors together in the same fabric, would lead gradually to their wedlock by the introduction of a paler brown into which the deep brown seemed to fade, and a duller red that seemed to grow less vivid before it met the lighter brown. A secret of the Oriental mingling of colors is their graduation, with the gradients, which I love. Again, in art, the gradients are amazingly key, and they smooth everything out and they make it so beautiful. And again, that's an amazing thing to do, especially with fabrics. That's not easy. Nor is the Oriental color mixer afraid of many colors. He essays without fear the commingling of the 7 shades of the rainbow, but the exquisiteness of his art is shown by the gradual melting of the colors into each other as clouds meet and mingle, the edges of one protruding beneath the sides of the other. But while what might be termed the Tartar touch is apparent in the handsomer and more stately gowns, they are only occasional. The simpler frocks for midsummer wear do not show them except in a collar or scarf or sash or a bit of inset embroidery. The trend of taste and the consideration of convenience dictate little weight, little trimmed outer garments for warm weather. Nain souk, batistes, and muslins do not blend well with barbaric splendor. They always got to slide that in. At most, a sash or girdle that introduces the softly mingled many colors of the East is permissible, or a scarf or crepe or organdie may present these colors. And look at these pictures. Do these people look barbarian-like? In a lot of these, they look beautiful to me. So that propaganda, they always have to put a little bit out. If you're making it into the newspaper, if you're making it into print, if you're getting published even today, you are connected and you have to toe the line. That's just the way it is. No matter who the president is, it seems like it just doesn't end. Only the club gets to have their voice heard and gets to make money. Furthermore, the sports character of midsummer dressing precludes Orientalism in simpler dress. The use of the long, sleeveless jacket of velvet or of crocheted silk leaves no surface, so to speak, for the introduction of the Oriental sash or girdle. Besides, such sash would be an incongruity. It would be a jarring note in the symphony of clothes. These people had style. My personal preference is for the sheerest, least tangible of apparel for the heyday of summer. Go to the garden for your inspiration for summer clothes. Observe the delicacy of the rose petals and the tender frailty of pansies. With the single exception of crepes, none of what I call the gentlefolk among the fabrics bears harmonious company with the stiffer, richer weaves produced in the East. Save for the girdle or sash aforementioned and possibly the many-colored enameled buckles, for hat or low shoes, it were better to keep your rich stuffs in abeyance for the 9 more heavily garbed months of the year. So, again, just a random article about fashion that I found very interesting because it's got a lot of cool things in it. And so I wanted to go back here to the term Tartarium, where I found the first term on Wikipedia where they describe it as this. Tartarium, also known as cloth of tars, was a luxurious textile during the Middle Ages. It was characterized by its high cost and was typically crafted through the combination of various materials. It goes on to say, in Dante's time, the term Tartar clothes referred to rich fabrics of Oriental origin that were brought through Tartary from China and its borders. These clothes were known for their fine materials, bright colors, and intricate designs, which were created either by weaving different colors on the loom or through other methods. Tartarium was a highly expensive fabric made of royal purple color. It was likely crafted by combining silk and goat's hair from Tibet. So again, very interesting. Marco Polo, a Venetian merchant who lived from 1254 to 1324, identified nasich and nakes as types of textiles made using gold, and Tartarium was one among the examples. Polo's writings suggest that the fabric was crafted using a technique that involved weaving strips of gold into it. This is clearly evident in his description of the great Khan's attire on his birthday, which he notes was made of the finest robes fashioned from beaten gold. As per the glossary that accompanies the Liber Costumarum in the wardrobe account of Rick III, the fabric known as tartarine, which was utilized as a lining material, was composed of a blend of linen and wool. It was markedly different from the earlier fabrics produced in tars. I almost wonder if a lot of fashion was what do we know of as fashion today, and what feels visually soothing and perfect to us in clothing style was all originated from this. And these cultures were around for a long time. When we see the ancient Roman or whatever those people were, you see a lot of cloth and different different robes and different things like that. But this stuff is an art form. This is like pure art that takes time, that takes effort, and they're wearing it as clothes. This is of a whole nother level than the toga and anything like that. And the great Khan's attire on his birthday, amazing. And so it goes into say origin and naming. And I also found it interesting, if you remember the movie Interstellar, that robotic AI thing was called TARS. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if they're trying to tell us something there. But it says, again, this is Wikipedia, but some of the links are there if you check out Tartarium in Wikipedia. And I included some of the pictures here as well, where in Dante's description, he describes Tartar clothes in Inferno XVII 1417. In his description of the monster Geryon in the 17th canto of the Inferno, Dante says, all this stuff. His back and breast and both his flanks were painted with knots and little rings. With more colors, groundwork, and design did never Tartars nor Turks make cloth. The Tartar clothes here referred to by Dante were so called according to Colonel Yule, the editor of Marco Polo, not because they were made in Tartary, but because they were brought from China and its borders through the Tartar dominions. The term in the Middle Ages appears to have been used generically of all rich stuffs of Oriental origin. Besides being of very fine material, they were conspicuous for the brilliancy of their coloring and design. Their brilliant effect was produced in three different ways apparently, either by weaving designs of various colors in the material on the loom, or by making what is known as a shot surface, or lastly by means of embroidery or applique on a plain ground. But again, this term Tars, according to the Wikipedia says, according to Wharton, the term Tars does not refer to the city of Tarsus in Cilicia, but instead it's an abbreviated form of Tartarin or Tartarium. The wardrobe accounts of Edward III of England indicate that Tars was an expensive item, as exemplified by the entry detailing a blue Tartarian jupon embellished with silver buckles, pennants, and garters. Boccaccio, in his commentary, describes the Tartarium clothes as being so expertly woven that no painter could match their quality with a brush. Now, that's pretty impressive of a quote. And if they're doing it in clothes, that's for clothing, think about. It's not for something to be hung on the wall, it's for wearing. The origin and naming of Tartarium cloth are subjects of conflicting accounts among the sources. According to Colonel Yule, Tartarium cloth was not named after Tartary because of its place of production, but rather because it was brought from Europe through the tiny Tartaries of the Tartar rulers. Ducange defined it as a fine cloth manufactured in Tartary. Skinner suggests that Tartarium cloth may have originated from Tortona, which is a city in the Milanese region. But who knows? And there's a couple mentions of it where Chaucer mentions it in The Flower and the Leaf. The Flower and the Leaf made reference to Tartarium, a type of fabric. In The Flower and the Leaf, we encounter tapestries referred to as verd due to the abundance of trees present on them. These tapestries were adorned with a minstrel gallery running along their length. The gallery was used as a gathering spot where a group of individuals wearing white cloaks and crowned with fresh oak garlands congregated. They carried trumpets adorned with rich Tartarian banners, displaying their lord's arms. The trumpets were decorated with wide collars, embellished with large pearls, as no expense was spared in their creation. Encyclopedia Britannica has mentioned Tartarium in the volume 12 under the section of gold. In medieval Europe, cloth and fabrics infused with gold and silver threads were favored by royal figures and important religious leaders for their ceremonial attire, costly decorations, and hangings. And that's medieval Europe, which could have all originated in Tartary and Tibet, where the colors are amazing. And they still make all their art with beautiful colors found in nature. Everything can be found there, and who knows what it was like before they destroyed everything. These textiles were known by different names such as Kikatatun, Tartarium, Nakas, or Nakbarak Baldachan from Baghdad, and tissue, and typically incorporated gold threads in conjunction with other materials. The inventories documenting the effects of Henry V make reference to russet and red tartarines. Additionally, it is noted that the coot armor he wore was of a Tar's cloth. So that's just a bunch of different examples that show just this term Tars, this Tartarian, this everything. It's just been lingering, and the meaning and the origins of it have just been getting obscured and obscured over time. I have no doubt that there were a lot more books that would go into this, and different, maybe even books that were written describing how to do these cloths, how to make this, how to do everything. I'm sure there are some in Tibet and other countries around there in other languages that are just not made it into our world, in our realm over here. But either way, a totally different avenue here for Tartarian Tales. Fashion, so maybe the ladies will like this one especially, who knows. But I find it very interesting as well because, again, it's a beautiful art form. It's a perfect art form. And if they're doing it in clothes, imagine what they're capable of. They could use, if they're using little tiny strings and things of metal, they're in gold, they're doing a lot more. They're melting down gold. They're making amazing everything. Their inventions, everything that could get lost in time, got lost. But the clothing remained because the people, the royalty, love to have their clothing above the peasants and the other people in the thing. They like to have it top notch so that they can feel very special and powerful. And so I can see why they would continue this and keep this going into the realms. And then again, give credit to someone else, because why give the barbarians credit for creating masterful art? That's for the other people that we descended from or something. God knows. But again, just piecing it all together, trying to reverse engineer it and see what pops up. I hope you all enjoyed this, and bless you all. Thank you so much from artofdino.com and saveearth.us.